So the last time you saw us, I was getting ready to leave this house from this very spot and drive to Brian's house to, and I quote, kick him in the nuts because of the insane, stupid, hilarious comments that he made. What had happened was my beater of a car didn't really make it down the block, so it's in the shop right now. Welcome to Wrestling with Egos. However you might be watching us or listening to us, whether it's on YouTube, Brian is very thankful right now that my car is in the shop. Thanks a lot, dude. I'm stranded while everybody else is at work. Anyway, however you may be watching or listening to us, whether it's here on YouTube or on Anchor Podcasts or anywhere else you can get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, Intergalactic Radio. Thank you guys so much for making us a part of your wrestling knowledge for the week. As I said earlier, my name's Patrick. I'm joined as always by my boys Brian and Isaac. Gentlemen, first Isaac, your thoughts to the end of last week's show, where we left off, where Brian's life seemed to be hanging in the balance.
I wanted some death. I wanted some murder. I wanted it to be Halloween. I wanted some blood. I wanted some guts. No offense, but I want just some pure violence. That's what I want.
I had the camera mounted in the car, and I was getting ready to. I was going to hit record once I got near Brian's house, and it would have been like Nyla Rose on Dynamite. Surprise, bitch!
Well, thankfully, that did not come to pass, and thankfully, we are all still, the greatest faction in the history of podcasting.
I like that. I like that. We got a great show for you guys tonight. A couple of relevant topics, and then we're going to get into our fun discussion that we had planned for tonight. It is a GOAT discussion, but not on a particular person or a particular entity, much like our GOAT discussion on Trish Stratus and whether or not she was the GOAT. This one is a who is the GOAT in terms of managers. Because let's be honest, boys and girls, there's only one of two answers. Nobody else makes the cut other than Bobby the Brain Heenan or Paul Heyman. So we're going to get into that here in a little bit, but we got to start the show off with a bummer of a story that broke early on Thursday. The unfortunate release of Jeff Hardy. The story as reported by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com was that earlier in the week, Jeff Hardy was sent home because he was in bad shape. I'm using air quotes for our podcast listeners as opposed to the YouTube family. He was in a bad way, I believe is how it was phrased. So he was sent home from the road, and then it was announced today that he was released after he was offered rehab and refused it. That, to me, guys, that's telling and also scary for a couple of reasons. Number one, this is now the second time that Jeff Hardy's been released by WWE. He's also been released once before by Impact and suspended by both of them. So this is now combined 5 times that he is run afoul with a company that employed him because of his demons. And that's scary. There's a lot of places you can go with this discussion. And I'm trying not to be a, plan for the worst, hope for the best kind of guy on this, because I am on so many other things in life. So I'm just going to lay back and shut up. Brian, you seem like you wanted to go, so go.
Above all else, the brain trust here, Wrestling with Egos, is not going to take the tack of some of the holier than thou trolls on Twitter. We're not even going to dignify what they said, but we at Wrestling with Egos want to wish Jeff Hardy all of the best. Mental health, physical health, family health, above all else, is the most important things I'm taking out of this situation right now.
Real quick, I did see earlier before we jumped on and started recording tonight that Jeff Hardy's wife Beth tweeted out that Jeff's good, we're good. Essentially, Jeff's good, we're good. Thank you.
Which, honestly and truthfully, I don't know how the two of you feel about this, but that's all I needed to know.
Yeah.
Because their business is really none of my business. I am just a low-level wrestling podcast co-host grunt who facilitates this information out to the listeners, and I'm not here to pass judgment on anybody. I'm the last person that should be passing judgment on anyone. I will just say that Jeff Hardy's been an important part of my development as a wrestling fan. You know, my younger years, the Attitude Era, were spent watching him and Matt, and some of my favorite matches of all time involve him. You know, climb the ladder, kid, make yourself famous, et cetera, et cetera. I will just say on behalf of my two co-hosts in the Wrestling with Egos family, Jeff, I wish you peace. I wish you healing, whatever that looks like for you. And, you know, it would be inappropriate of me to really comment any further or speculate any further on it.
Yeah, I think ultimately, I think the thing here is, you know, we collectively, and I think I can speak for just about any wrestling fan, would really love to see Jeff Hardy come out the other end on this and, you know, be in a better place. Because that's really all you can hope for with anybody. Isaac, before I get to you, one thing I wanted to point out about Jeff Hardy, and this is really and truly the only thing I feel like I want to say in this, because you can harp on so many negative things if you just keep going and going. Jeff Hardy, no matter what has happened, this is a guy who is universally loved by fans. And if you read the Twitter reactions from people that are currently on the roster, used to be on the roster up in, not too long ago, have wrestled against him and with him in various other places, you don't see too many bad things being said about Jeff Hardy. The one I really wanted to point out today was of Killer Cross. He tweeted out that it was a really cool deal for him to be in the ring with Jeff Hardy that first night with crowds when he came out to No More Words for the first time, because Jeff had said when we go back to live crowds, that's coming back. And he tweeted out that video, like the clip from Raw of that, and when the drums hit, you know, he goes from being, you know, the killer psychopath that Karrion Kross was, and you just see like, yeah, you know, closed lips, smile, head nod, just like,
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. But Jeff Hardy has been someone that fans get emotionally invested in, because of just the sacrifices he has made physically in the 20 plus years he's been wrestling. I had it brought to my attention earlier this week. I was listening to a podcast and they were reacting to the King of the Ring from 1995. And little known fact, the two guys that are, because you remember like those old King of the Ring set where they had the doors and the guys dressed as like royal guards that would open the doors. King of the Ring 95, the two guys at the door, Matt and Jeff Hardy.
Yep.
I was like, holy crap, I didn't know that. So I pulled up Peacock and started watching. I'm like, son of a gun. But yeah, dude, we could do an entire show about moments in Jeff Hardy's career that made us feel something. And we could give you an hour's worth of content. Easy. But I'll just mention one moment. WrestleMania Orlando.
Yeah.
Top 3 loudest pops in history. And if RJ were here, and by the way, big shout out to our boy RJ, under the weather today. He actually wanted to come on, but he's like, I feel like crap, I can't do it. But if RJ were here, he would very, very gleefully remind Brian that he was at that show.
Again.
By the way, did you guys know that RJ was featured on Being the Elite at at the very first Double or Nothing when Hangman?
No, you never you never heard anything about this ever.
Well, did you guys also know that Britt Baker actually is a dentist?
What?
I know. Oh, and one more thing. You know it's coming, Brian. Cody Rhodes cannot challenge for the AEW World Championship. However, he can challenge for the TNT Championship, which is what he's doing. Which is what he's doing next Friday. Barf. Oh, and the apron of the ring is the hardest part of the ring.
Okay, we got to get the box set out there.
Hey, that
intrepid viewers of our show come to expect.
Recently, AEW has been all about talking about the 4 pillars at AEW, and
this is the 4 pillars of wrestling with egos.
Yeah, these are the 4 sarcastic pillars of wrestling with egos.
That's the new shirt.
God, yeah.
Buy the shirt.
Yeah, I love the fact that that AEW has that shirt out, but instead of MJF there, it's
Britt
Baker. That's hilarious.
That's funny. And Punk was wearing it on Dynamite. Anyway, Isaac, I didn't plan on going that long. I apologize.
How can I sit here and say Jeff Hardy without tag team wrestling? How can I say Jeff Hardy without bringing a smile to my face? How can I say Jeff Hardy was part of so many moments, not just, WrestleMania moments, the night he came back to face Edge, when no one thought it was him, that he was going to show up. So many vivid memories of what he did, Madison Square Garden, and I love him, and I hope that he gets better. I'm not one of these stupid wrestling trolls or saying all this negative stuff about him. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to wish the best for him and hope he gets better and gets out of whatever he's going through, because we all don't know what it is. And when he's ready to discuss it, or if he's ever going to discuss it, I'll be willing and ready to listen.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their demons, especially, let's be honest, wrestlers fortunately have these demons because, up until very recently, wrestling companies and wrestling promoters generally didn't give 2 craps about taking care of their athletes. But all we can really hope is that I think it's safe to say that nobody wants to see Jeff Hardy turn into a statistic. And,
Amen to that.
Yeah. And so, keep your head up. I'll leave it at that. Brian, there was something that you, in our pre-show meeting, wanted to talk about. And when I saw the news announced on this, I really didn't give it much thought until you brought it up. And I was like, son of a gun. So what you got?
If you've got old man yells at cloud gif ready, you could probably insert it here if you wanted to.
I'll probably go with a clip from that Clint Eastwood movie, Gran Torino, where he's going, "Get off my lawn."
Earlier this week, the news broke that starting in 2022, WWE is going to stop the production of DVD and Blu-ray releases. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, gee whiz, Brian, you've got the Peacock Network, don't you? All the documentaries that they've ever put out are on there for your viewing pleasure. Why do you need to keep buying them at the rate that you apparently do based on the props you're holding up right now? And all I'll say is I'm one of these people. I'm old enough to remember an era where holding the thing meant a connection to the thing. I still have ticket stubs from baseball games that I've attended. I still, even though for the first time ever, my wife, the lovebird, and I don't own a car now that has a CD player in it, I still have a CD collection. I'm actually looking at it across the room from me right now. It's on the opposite wall from where I'm sitting. When I read books, I actually buy the book and read it. So all of my Steve Barry historical fiction that I love to read, I own the books. And wrestling DVDs and Blu-rays for me are no different. I love the fact that they jam-pack these things with content. This Daniel Bryan one is a 3-disc collection, as a matter of fact. Great, you know, and I love that it looks like a briefcase, too.
I was trying to find the War Games one you gave me. I can't find. I don't know where the hell it is.
Well, spoiler alert, I still have it. I never gave it back to you.
You son of a bitch.
I borrowed it from you, and I still have yet to return it. But
well, time.
Yes.
That's what's going to happen after the show tonight, Brian.
You're going to record yourself driving to the house.
Because I'd like to point out that
you're going to get on that Metro bus.
My wife got home from work a little early, so I can take her car now. So after the show's over, I will see you in 30 minutes. I will kick you in the nuts, and then I will take my DVD, my Blu-ray back home.
Or I could just make that part of your Christmas present. How about that? I could re-gift it, quote unquote.
That's awesome.
I'll stipulate, I get it. Okay, these things in this day and age, they cost money to produce. And the fact that you can go for $10 a month now and get the Peacock Network, which gets you access to the WWE library, means the chances of you walking into a Walmart and plunking down $30 on a 3-disc set or $15 or whatever are slim and none.
Right.
So the company is looking at, okay, how can I cut production costs? And this is another way that you can cut production costs.
Something else to consider, Brian. You mentioned Peacock. Why would we spend the money to produce wonderful things like this when NBC Universal is giving us $1 billion to put everything online?
And this is true, but it's the same argument for me with the movie. I forget what movie it was the other night. The Lovebird and I remember. Now You See Me Too came on. Excellent movie. I love anything having to do with magic. It was on TBS or something like that. And it went to a commercial break.
By the way, this is a movie that Brian, I know for a fact, can quote word for damn word.
Pretty much. Actually, here I think they just call it food. So she goes, well, you might as well just put it in. So I got up, boys and girls, hold on to your seats on this one. I got up off the couch. I walked over to the movie rack and I pulled out Now You See Me Too, and I pushed the power button on the Blu-ray player, and the little drawer opened up. And I put the disc down in the drawer, and then I pushed the button again. It closed up. I changed the input on the television, and my God, the Blu-ray menu popped up on the television. And then for the next 2+ hours, we watched it commercial-free, boys and girls.
Right.
And I know, I get it. I get it now that you can watch the stuff commercial-free depending on whatever platform you're on. You can just stream it, and it's a virtual copy, and you own it forever and all that. But there's just something for me about the tangible thing. And I know I'm in the minority big time on this. So I get it. But I thought it would be nice to wax some nostalgia tonight about your memories of buying them, what your favorite ones are, which ones hold a special place in your heart, and kind of regale our listeners.
Well, I have 2 favorites. I just showed you one because this, not only does this give you every Money in the Bank match, one right after the other, up until I can't remember what year. Anyway, but regardless of what year it ended, not only does it give you that, but it is also in the extras section, gives you every Money in the Bank cash in.
Cool.
Which was just really freaking awesome.
So you get the complete story. You get the people who waited a long time, and you get the people who did it the same night or the next night, and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Alexa Bliss cashing in on Rousey, my personal favorite, and should be a lot of people's favorites. WrestleMania 31.
The heist of the century.
Rollins breaking the land speed record, getting to the ring. And my other one being the one that Brian still has, because
that's what made me think of it when I was rounding up, the stack that I have next to me here. I saw that one and I'm like, oops, this one doesn't belong to me.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's going to want to reference it.
That's actually what I was looking for. I'm like, David, I can't find it. Where the hell is it? Totally forgot you had it. But yeah, it's War Games. So, I mean, that we have talked ad nauseum about how I feel about war games. So when I got that as a present from the I was like, it was like Charlie's eyes opening real wide and hearing, I've got a golden ticket. So yeah, totally awesome. But I'm with you on that one, Brian, in terms of like the nostalgia. But I also look at it from a business point of view, and it just cost them less money. And also, me being a massive videophile, and I like the high resolution, us having 4K TV, Peacock streams in 4K. I have every Star Wars movie on Blu-ray, all 9 of them. And guess what? I don't watch them. Why? Because they're all on Disney Plus in 4K. It looks better. The Marvel movies look better. Harry Potter looks better.
I guess as somebody, and I'll admit, I'm someone who's never really cared about that kind of stuff.
Right.
Because I listen to all my friends. You and I have had conversations about this at work and while we're playing golf and stuff like that, and it goes right over my head because I'm just happy that up in my living room right now there's a 46-inch, whatever kind of TV it is, and it has a sharp picture on it and everything looks cool on it. Even when I put regular Blu-rays and DVDs in, it still looks good, and I'm fine with that. I don't need the surround sound and the megapixels and the this and the that. It's just
right.
And
I had the same discussion all the time with my wife, and I think the reason that I am so into higher resolution and just it looking as great as possible is because, let's be honest, unlike everybody else in this conversation, I'm a gamer. So,
fair.
Give me the option of playing a gorgeous game like, say, God of War 4 on PlayStation. Give me the choice between, give you a great example. When my wife and I got married and we moved in together, her TV was 4K. My old TV that I had was not. And I went from playing God of War on my TV to hers, and game changer. I finished the rest of that game like, oh my God. Just the detail was that much better. And I'm just a kid in a candy store. Just like, picture mode. Picture mode. So, Isaac, your thoughts?
Okay, I've got some DVDs that you're not finding on Peacock. Back in the day, I was looking for one for 20, 25 years. King of the Ring many, many years ago. Still can't find it. But do I want to have that in my library that I can look over and see it and touch it physically? Yes, I do. There's some, that they're going to eventually phase out. There's one that we can't really make mention, because two of them, or I should say two of them right now, because two of the people in there, are not in the good graces of the WWE. And I have those in my basement at the same time, and I go back and I look back, I reference them, I want to see them. Do I understand it? I totally, completely understand. And I want to have something visible, something that I can touch. I can sit there and say, oh, let me put this in the VCR. I've got so many tapes, I can't sit here and tell you how many I have. I've got my Blu-ray player. I have that too. It means something to have it physically. I don't want to go through Peacock and the WWE network. I want to have it in my house. But that's me. That's my own personal thing. Yes, I'm a little old school because I'm old. It is what it is. But, I understand why they're doing it. I get it. But the old school me wants me to just keep, physical stuff.
And big man, to your point, something that you started going that way, and I kind of hoped you would have kept going, but so I'll just go there for you with, having, especially like if you're VHS taping stuff and you're taping it directly from it, or even if you're DVRing the live event, that's still a lot, sometimes better than watching what WWE puts online or even puts on the DVD. I'll give you one example. WrestleMania 20, the Cruiserweight Open that featured Mysterio and Chavo and London and Kendrick and Kidman and Ultimo Dragon. Ultimo Dragon comes out to the ring. He's 3 steps past the curtain, slips and busts his ass. Gets down the ramp, goes into the ring, goes to stand on the second rope in the corner, and slips again.
Oh, boy.
If you have WrestleMania 20 on DVD or Blu-ray, they have already edited that out. So obviously it's not on Peacock either. But live, busts his ass twice.
Unbelievable.
So I mean, especially when you mentioned the VHS tape, that brought me back to recording stuff and going, yeah, you get it sanitized the way we get it now. It's got to be perfect in their eyes, as opposed to, hypothetically, Liv Morgan comes out to the ring and slips and goes face plants, like that one time Lillian Garcia got her heel caught in the ramp and went down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You miss out on that, but you only get to see it when it ends up on channels like Botchamania.
Yeah.
So, anybody else got anything they want to add on this before we get to the main event?
My personal favorite in my collection is going to surprise you.
So help me God, if you invoke the name of Armando Alejandro Estrada, I'm just
gonna hold it up and I'll see if you can tell why it's my favorite.
Oh, we don't know.
Yeah, I know exactly why it's your favorite. I was there when it got signed.
Yep. You look very closely over his arm. You can see an autograph. That was when we went to the funny stop in Cuyahoga Falls when he was on the tour, and I brought this with me, and he signed it to Brian, Cactus Jack.
Yep.
So
I have my copy of Have a Nice Day signed by him. So yeah. Let's go ahead and get into the part that I have been really looking forward to all week, because it is a debate that you can really make the argument doesn't have a wrong answer, but we're gonna come up with an answer, whether somebody on this panel agrees with it or not. It's gonna be our collective decision. And we are having a bit of a GOAT discussion tonight. Where's our boy? Brian? Where's Goaty? Hello, Goaty. Can't remember his name. What did you say his name was?
His name is Goatee.
Goatee, okay.
That's what it says on the tag.
I wanted to name him Ralphus, but Brian wouldn't let me.
Oh, brother, here we go.
Anyway, we are talking about the greatest manager in the history of wrestling. And trust me, there have been some great managers in history. Jimmy Hart, Captain Lou Albano, Frank Blassie, the Grand Wizard, Sensational Sherry, Woman. Very underrated in that. James J. freaking Dillon. The list goes on and on. But when you start comparing career to career, you can start checking names off the list of, they don't make the cut. Yeah, they don't make the cut. They don't make the cut. Because ultimately, there's only 2 names that truly get in that discussion of who is the greatest. It's like talking about who is like the greatest overall athlete of all time. You only get 4, 5, 6 names in that discussion, like Ali and Jordan and Jackson and Jim Thorpe. Names like that. You're talking like elite stratosphere. Maybe not even a GOAT type of discussion, more like maybe a Mount Olympus, like who were like the true gods of this. And it comes down to 2 names, Bobby the Brain Heenan or Paul Heyman. And you can make the argument for both. What we're going to do is we're going to go around, we're going to make the case for each one for both of them, one at a time. And then we're going to compare, contrast, and then make our votes. let's just go in chronological order, and let's start with Bobby the Brain Heenan. And I will throw this part out as the first massive check mark for Bobby the Brain Heenan. In terms of sheer comedic brilliance, there is nobody in wrestling, in ring or out of the ring, that can even carry his shoes. Not even close. Not even the funniest comedic wrestlers ever. Not as much as we love R-Truth on this show. When it comes to wrestling comedy, R-Truth is Bobby Heenan's bitch. That's just all there is to it. So one thing that Heenan brings to the table more than anything else is just that comedy. Whether he was a manager, whether he was getting the crap beaten out of him by a wrestler, or he was on commentary with Gorilla Monsoon. I mean, nobody touches that in terms of Heenan. What else for you guys does Bobby Heenan bring to the table in terms of like criteria that we need to truly discuss in this?
Isaac, go ahead.
Who he's managed. Right there and then. And we can sit here, we can go through a list of the Brainbusters, Andre the Giant. That right there. Enough. That's,
You're missing a big one. Well, you're missing two big ones. Both have the same first name, but it's spelled differently. First off, what I'd like to have right now is for all you fat, out of shape Minnesota sweat hogs to acknowledge ravishing Rick Rude. Rick Rude, especially in WWE during that run as Intercontinental Champion in that feud with the Ultimate Warrior, Bobby Heenan was so essential to making Rude what he was in WWE, and it was brilliant. The feud with Jake Roberts, with Jake's wife on the tights, and so there. And then some guy that when I was really little, I would sit on my grandmother's lap and watch this guy cut promos, and I laughed every time he said "woo," because he did manage Ric Flair. So in terms, who he managed, big one.
Something I'll bring to the table too for Heenan is the purists out there will go back to the pre-WWF WWE days.
Nick Bockwinkel. We forgot about that.
Yeah.
He managed Nick Bockwinkel.
He managed Nick Bockwinkel. He managed Ray Stevens, and he was their mouthpiece. Not that. Now we've talked about Nick Bockwinkel a little bit on this show before. Nick Bockwinkel never needed anybody to be a mouthpiece for him, but it sure didn't hurt that he could take a break every once in a while and let Bobby do the talking for him.
Nick Bockwinkel might be the only person's name that's ever been mentioned on this show that can go syllable for syllable with one Brian Aloysius Kriego.
Oh, I would love that if that happened. Let's go.
Good Lord. Talk about vocabularies. Jesus.
And because I went back and I did research, I queued up the documentary that's on the Peacock Network because that's the DVD that I don't own. Sorry to say. Well, I never had a reason to buy it, but I always pay attention to the early years because that's the gaps in my wrestling knowledge is how did they get their start?
Right.
And he was, he was born in Chicago, and that AWA territory.
Oh yeah.
Was a huge influence on him, and he got in there with, because his father,
mom and grandmother.
Mom and grandmother were promoters, or they arranged entertainment for a civic center or something like that.
I think it was his grandmother.
Yes, and that's how he started meeting all these. The wrestlers would come through,
I would go to the Civic Arena and sell Cokes and sell programs and take jackets, and the original Sheik, Eddie Farhat, would chase me all around the arena.
Yeah. So that's, so I was interested in those early formative things, because a lot of the things that we know him for in WWE, they tried out in the Minnesota territory first, the weasel suit, all that kind of stuff. It was done there first, and arguably done better from the footage I saw, before it was copied in front of a larger audience when he got to WWF.
Right, exactly. One more thing I want to point out is, even though we're talking about him as a manager, every time we have a GOAT discussion, there's those intangibles. We can't do this discussion without talking about the intangibles for both of these guys. And for Bobby Heenan, that massive intangible was with the headset on, sitting at the table with either Vince McMahon or God. Thank God for Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon.
Will you stop?
Will you stop? I will still maintain that even though the pay-per-view itself isn't really all that great, SummerSlam 1991 in Madison Square Garden, the back and forth between Gorilla, Roddy Piper, and Bobby Heenan is the stuff of legend. Forget watching the show, just pay attention to those three. It's just, the banter, especially between Roddy and Heenan, is just amazing.
And I've said it before about how Jim Ross is the soundtrack of my formative years as a wrestling fan. But I'll go back even further than that. Bobby Heenan was part of that soundtrack too, because a moment that we talk about a lot on this show is the Rockers breaking up during the barbershop scene, where Shawn Michaels super kicks Marty Jannetty and then throws him through the sugar glass.
Oh, I knew he was going to do that.
Yeah. See, one without these, they made it up. See, one without the other isn't good. And then super kick. Oh, I knew he was going to do that. And it's like, Bobby. And then I'll do you one better. And you've talked about this before, Patrick, so I should give credit to you on this.
I hope I know where you're going, because I had something in my head, and maybe
I'm about to surprise you. I'm about to surprise you, because this is not a WWF moment.
Okay.
This is a WCW moment. You wonder if this goes over as well as it does if you don't have Heenan losing his mind on commentary. Who's the third man? Okay, but whose side is he on? What if he's with them? And so on. And you're like, and you're listening to Heenan talk about it, and the interplay with Shivani, and I was Mike Tenay with him at that point.
Dusty.
Okay.
Tony, Bobby, and Dusty.
I should go back and watch that and really pay attention, because I know of it, but I should go back and watch that and just forget about what's happening in the ring and think about the commentary team.
All right, real quick, just breaking that down. The in-ring shock of Tony Schiavone when Hogan drops the leg is, to me, up there in the emotion of good God Almighty, they killed him. As God is my witness, he's been broken in half. Somebody stop the damn match.
Mm-hmm.
But the sheer WTF of Bobby Heenan saying, but whose side is he on? And Dusty responding with, what the hell are you talking about? Just that.
And then just the despair in Shivani's voice.
Yeah.
Because, and that would lead me to believe that they were all in the dark about it.
Oh, totally. If go back and listen to the episode of 83 Weeks when they discussed it. Bischoff didn't tell. The only people that knew what was happening were Bischoff and the people in the ring.
Yeah, and in hindsight, that's the way it had to be, because
if I'm not mistaken, I think the referee was Nick Patrick, and Nick Patrick didn't even know. Because also, if you look at it, he didn't factor into the pinfall. There was no pinfall.
He's going like this the whole time.
No, he was out. Well,
at first, because Hogan shoved him out of the way before he dropped the leg.
That's right. No, he wasn't.
And then you see him in the background going like this, and then he gets beat up and kicked out of the ring.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it might have been Randy Anderson instead. But anyway, moving right along. Anybody else have another thing they want to bring up for the Weasel?
I'll bring up his adaptability.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was really good at reading the room and understanding, okay, I need to move from this role into this role, and I maybe need to move from this role into this role. Because when I watched the documentary, they show clips of that god-awful talk show that he had. I mean, just, but he was, I mean, that you could make an argument that that was before his time. That was, I mean, yes, is it off color? Yes. Is it insensitive to women? You bet it is. Is it, but it was just another case of Vince and everybody trying something out to see what worked and what didn't.
Right. And in that period of WWE, they were doing a lot of that because they needed something new.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and change gears to, I just got to do it, the advocate for the former reigning, defending, undisputed WWE Universal Heavyweight Champion of the world, Brock Lesnar. Because, ladies and gentlemen, his name is Paul Heyman. He does not measure up in terms of who he's managed. But I will say this. Heenan family, at their absolute best, hang on, Brian, hang on. Bobby Heenan managed more people that had championship success. I mean, he had, first off, the list of people that Heenan managed was bigger than Heyman's. The list of champions that Heenan managed was bigger than Heyman's. But Heenan family, at their absolute best, with Perfect and Rude, and I think at the same time he had Hercules, but at that same time, I think he also had Haku and Andre as the tag champs.
He did.
But during that, the Heenan family at its absolute best cannot even touch the Dangerous Alliance.
Okay, I'm a.
Whoa! Rick Rude, Medusa, Arn, Zabisco, Bobby Eaton, Steve Austin. Don't at me. Doesn't come close.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. When it comes to factions and who he's managed, let's take the Dangerous Alliance off the table. Hold. Well, do you want me to speak? Let me explain my point. Relax. Take it down 1,000.
No, I don't. I will take it down 1,000 after you made your point, if it makes sense. I want to stay up here in case your point doesn't make sense, because the machine gun's already loaded. Proceed, sir.
Yeah, number one, you ain't coming to my house. That's number one.
I don't know where you live.
No. Number two, that ain't gonna happen. And you said in who he's managed. Now let's think of this broader. And when I say broader, I mean Paul Heyman, ECW, as a whole, of the people that he has brought into the wrestling atmosphere, whether he specifically developed them or not. When we talk about ECW and who they are, Dudley's, Rey Mysterio, Benoit.
Hang on. I see where you're going with this, but that's more of an intangible, because he didn't manage the Dudleys. He didn't manage Taz. He didn't manage RVD or Shane Douglas. He managed Sabu, but he didn't manage any of the other big names that came through ECW. He was the promoter. That's the intangible of Paul Heyman. But if you're looking at as a manager, what separates Heyman from Heenan is the Dangerous Alliance. And you say you want to take the Dangerous Alliance off the table. That's like comparing football players, and you have Jerry Rice and Bo Jackson, but Bo Jackson isn't allowed to talk about the fact that he could run the damn ball. That's essentially what you're saying. You're hamstringing Heyman by saying, well, we have to take the Dangerous Alliance off the table. No, we do not. We cannot. If we're doing that, then the show is over, because it's Bobby Heenan. The answer is Bobby Heenan. I mean, that's kind of my opinion on that. So the machine gun was loaded because of that statement alone. Like, if we take the Dangerous Alliance off the table. No, you cannot. You cannot do that. You will not do that because, let's be honest, Isaac, show's over. Good night, everybody. But do you see my point? I mean, I see yours brilliantly. I, however, believe the point you're making is more intangible than wrestling manager.
If you're also going to bring up the Dangerous Alliance, also bring up Big Van Vader, because he did manage him at one point in time.
Not. Bet me $1. He didn't do it. Harley Race managed Vader.
I could be. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Heyman managed Bam Bam Bigelow at the very beginning of Bigelow's career. He managed the original Midnight Express because when they feuded with Jim Cornette's the Midnight Express that we're all more familiar with, Eaton and Lane. He managed Condrey and Rose. He managed a bunch of people in the AWA. He never managed Vader. Vader went from Japan to WCW, and he was managed by Harley. And then he was managed by Cornette and WWE. So
I'm wrong, boys and girls. I'm not afraid to sit here and say that. Hey, wasn't the first, won't be the last.
I think we can all say that about all of us. But again, I go back to just looking. Heenan had the numbers. Heyman had
the impact.
Heyman had the 98 Bulls.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it like, and I'm kind of tipping my hand a little bit here about which direction my vote is going to go in. But when a manager comes out with a microphone, am I looking for comedy or am I looking for reasons why I should fear the guy that you're representing? And in my mind, when Paul Heyman comes out with a microphone, I know I'm about to go to school. I know I'm about to sit at the learning tree. He's given some of the most brilliant promos ever given, bar none, by anybody. I mean, he was doing it all the way back in AWA. He was doing it in Memphis. And that's the reason why he was run out of those territories, was because he clashed with the establishment. That's the common theme here. Everywhere he goes, he is a clash of styles, forgive me, AJ, with the establishment, the people that are in charge, and the people that are used to doing things a certain way. And then here comes this brash, cocky, arrogant guy who's rocking the boat every time you turn around. He did it on commentary with JR all the time. He did it, he was rocking the boat all the time with the people that he was working with in ECW. Todd Gordon, top of that list. I mean, Todd was used to doing things a certain way, and Paul Heyman came in and upset that apple cart so many times. And then I just marvel at Paul Heyman's ability to be, he takes Bobby Heenan's adaptability and turns the volume up to like 60. Because this guy conned and weaseled his way into so many things, starting off with a production meeting from the Great Dusty Road. I mean, I would not have the stones to try and do that.
Keep in mind, before that, he hustled his way into a event producer for Studio 54.
Yeah, and before that, he got press passes from Vincent J. McMahon. I mean,
as a teenager.
Yeah. So that's the part about this too that I keep forgetting, because I watched, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman earlier today too in preparation for our show. He was doing all of this like when he was burned out from ECW, he was in his late 20s.
Yeah.
He was like 27, 28, 29, and I'm like, I need to lie down after just the first 15 years of his wrestling career. I mean, my goodness, the sheer volume of stuff that he had done by that point. So that's the big thing for him. That I present for him is that he ever since he saw it on TV, he says, I want to do this, and by hook or by crook, by God, I'm going to do it.
Something I want to I think we're also kind of getting into our compare and contrast simultaneously, which I'm fine with too. But something I wanted to point out, you mentioned that Bobby Heenan was the mouthpiece for Nick Botwinkle. He was the mouthpiece for Ravish and Rick Rude. He was the mouthpiece for Mr. Perfect. 3 guys that didn't need a mouthpiece. I want to point out 2 things. One is very current, and one is current, but not completely applicable. Paul Heyman was the mouthpiece for CM Punk, the last guy in the world that needs a mouthpiece. But it worked. And somebody else that he's a mouthpiece for that I never thought I'd say this, but doesn't really need it anymore. He's the mouthpiece for Roman. Roman can handle his own now, especially in this character that he's in as the tribal chief, the head of the table. He can nail this, but he's got Heyman, so he doesn't have to do all the heavy lifting. But what for me and Heyman, like being the mouthpiece, the unnecessary mouthpiece, I'll call it. He was the unnecessary mouthpiece for CM Punk. Like I said, that's like putting diamonds on a Rolls Royce. I mean, you're already taking something that's priceless and going even beyond that. And to me, that speaks volumes as well. I think I'm kind of tipping my hand as well, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I got one other point I want to make, and this will be under intangibles. But before I get there, I'm going to flip it back over to you guys for anything else you guys might want to add.
Isaac, go ahead if you got anything.
I don't have anything else. I think I put everything out.
But I got a feeling I'm about to change that because I think what I'm about to bring up is going to spark some conversation with both of you guys.
And that would be?
All right. Well, so we're getting back into the conversation of the intangibles of Paul Heyman. And Isaac talked about it earlier. I want to finish that discussion. 3 letters. ECW. Let's actually go a little bit beyond that. 3 more letters. OVW. Paul Heyman is responsible. Good God. Go back and look at the WWE Hall of Famers, or people that will eventually be in the WWE Hall of Fame, or they went to AEW and they won't be in the Hall of Fame because they pissed off Vince, namely Paul White. Look at the Hall of Famers that not only that Heyman didn't manage, but Heyman
molded.
Help, yeah, exactly, molded. Paul White, Beth Phoenix, Edge,
John Cena, Lesnar, Batista,
Angle, Batista, exactly.
Randy Orton.
Yeah, I mean the list goes on, and especially in OVW where he and Cornette were instrumental in the development of Benjamin, Cena, Orton, Lesnar, Beth Phoenix, CM Punk, The list goes on and on with that. And Paul Heyman was essentially brought in to just help teach people how to cut promos. And his advice is sought out still backstage by countless wrestlers. Paul Heyman's influence on the wrestling business, because of what happened, what was here, not what was coming out of here, but up here, changed wrestling. Not just in ECW, which without ECW, wrestling as we know it is not what it is. That's a hill I'll die on right there. But his influence gave us so many amazing talents that we wouldn't have known of without his influence. The Dudleys, Pats, Rob Van Dam, those, Dreamer, those
Mick
guys.
Foley.
What?
Mick Foley.
Mick Foley, yeah. Oh my God, the anti-hardcore promos that Mick Foley cut in ECW. Steve Austin found Stone Cold in ECW when he was just paid to cut promos and be pissed off because Eric Bischoff fired him by FedEx. So what?
Mike Awesome.
Yeah, Mike Awesome. But not just the people that he influenced wrestling as a whole, because ECW is a promotion that died 21 years ago, and you still get ECW chants.
Yep.
That is influence. That is proof that you created something groundbreaking.
And you still get matches like Cody and Andrade from a couple of weeks ago, and Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa on St. Patrick's Day Slam in a lights out match. Things of that nature, because that's the ECW influence.
Right. Yes. So for me, that last intangible is exactly what Isaac was bringing up earlier, is just the people that he influenced. Literally everybody that was on SmackDown when he was the lead writer. And because all Heyman wanted to do was push younger stars, and create stars. Somebody else that we haven't mentioned yet. I got 3 names to mention: Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit. All came to ECW and had their cup of coffee there before they went on to WCW, and the rest is history.
Jericho.
Oh yeah, Jericho, Mysterio, Juventud, Psychosis, Super Crazy, Yoshihiro Tajiri, Jerry Lynn, Rhino.
Lance Storm.
Yeah, and guys, some of these names that we're mentioning in this little run, these are people that are coaches and trainers in AEW and WWE and Impact now,
or have their own schools.
Exactly. So just that reach, that extension of, it's kind of like when you're talking about football and you talk about like the Bill Parcells coaching tree, where because of the influence of Bill Parcells, and I can't go on all the names, but I'll name 2. But because of what Bill Parcells taught people, you got Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. I hate saying that last one, but hey, it is what he is who he is, and that is a brilliant football coach. Same could be done with Bill Walsh with the Niners. Paul Heyman has that tree. He's one of those people, and there's so few of them in wrestling. The only 2 that I can truly think of would be him and Dusty, that people just learned from. And then I take that back. That's still one tree, because Dusty taught Heyman.
Yeah.
And then Heyman became his own entity. So that's all. But again, for me, Paul Heyman, to me, belongs on a short list, very short list, of the most influential people in the history of pro wrestling. And there's, I wouldn't put someone like Bischoff on that list. Bischoff had a short run. I'd put Vince on there. I'd put Heyman on there. I'd have to think about others. But those two, I'd put
Vince
Flair.
Senior.
Say what?
Vince Senior.
Yeah. Vince Senior, Vince Jr., Flair, Heyman. Just in terms of like sheer influence over wrestling as a whole. And just like the most important and influential names ever. And as great as Bobby Heenan was, and as much as there are certain aspects of Bobby Heenan's career that I can pull up on Peacock and still watch to this day and laugh my butt off. Hall of Fame induction speech. I rest my case. I'll go first. And to me, the answer of who is the greatest manager of all time is Paul Heyman.
Isaac, what say you?
For everything overall, the intangibles, everything that we are today, it's got to be Paul Heyman. Without a doubt.
I mean, the preponderance of the evidence that we've just listed just kind of cements it. It's Paul Heyman. I mean, Bob, and this is no disrespect to Bobby Heenan whatsoever, because the man was a genius, the man was a hard worker, and the man managed and took bumps with some of the greatest names, the sport had to offer. But the reach and the impact and the gift of communication and the drive and determination of him, I mean, tilts this in Paul Heyman's favor, in my opinion.
Right. Don't get me wrong. And you mentioned the fact that there's no disparaging of Bobby Heenan. By the way, preponderance of evidence. I love that phrase. But yeah, I mean, Heenan, in his own amazing way, has his own level and place of brilliance in the pantheon of wrestling. There was nobody funnier. Like I said, and I'll double down on it. You look at wrestling today, and who's probably the funniest guy out there? Probably R-Truth, maybe Orange Cassidy, someone like that. And they're still playing little league compared to Heenan. And Heenan's playing at Atlanta Braves level. By the way, did you guys know? And here's our fifth pillar for right now. Did you guys know that the Atlanta Braves are your 2021 World Series champions? Did you guys know that?
I think I read that somewhere.
I might have heard that somewhere.
Probably a handsome guy in glasses with a little bit of hair on his head sitting in front of Christmas stockings.
No, that wasn't it. No.
I'm pretty sure that was it. Just handsome some bitch. So
I wouldn't say all that. I mean, you're really pushing it.
No, I think Jeff Passan wrote a story on ESPN about it, and I read it.
Oh, that's where it might have been.
I prefer Tim Kirchin, but okay, Jeff Passan, not Passan, Kirchin's a Hall of Famer. Just saying.
Passan's was the first name I could come up with off the top of my head.
Right. I totally get that. By the way, just because his name hasn't been mentioned, and I'm not even sure he's alive anymore, but shout out to Peter Gammons. Great baseball writer. But again, both of them have their places, and like I said, or I think I said at the beginning of the conversation, that Mount Olympus level of wrestling managers. It's them at the top, and they're looking down at everyone else. Kind of pulling this one out of you guys real quick, and I'm stealing a page out of Isaac's playbook on this one. Take Heenan and Heyman off the table. Who's the greatest?
Can I go first?
Yeah.
Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart.
That's where I was going. I would probably go Jimmy Hart. If not Jimmy Hart, then Freddie Blassie.
I see you there.
Yeah, it's going to have to be somebody from that era because managers in general have gone by the wayside. You know, it's not. I mean, yeah, you could, you know. I mean, I'm trying to think of anybody of consequence from either the Attitude, Ruthless Aggression, or PG eras that, you know, even holds a candle to these two gentlemen.
No.
That wasn't just, you know, fulfilling a comedy role like Estrada, or fulfilling, you know, a valet role like Sherry was.
The only one I could even consider,
or Sonny.
Yeah, but he only worked because of who he was paired with, was Paul Bearer. But then again, Percy Pringle III, during his run in World Class Championship Wrestling, was still pretty gangster. But
right.
I would still put Jimmy Hart above Percy Pringle III / Paul Bearer.
Yeah, I think Jimmy Hart is as good a shout as any. You know,
no.
If I have to sit here for that long and ponder it, then, you know, because I mean, the only person I can think of right now, because of the presentation, and who knows how much longer this will be a presentation because of what's happening in NXT, is Malcolm Bivens. I mean, because Malcolm Bivens is trying to go down that road of being a mouthpiece in the sharp suits and these are my people and that sort of thing.
He is good. He is good. So,
but he's only been doing it for 6 months, so
right. Give it time. We could continue down the rabbit hole of other great managers, just throwing some other last minute names out there. Well, one last minute name out there, Ted DiBiase. After his in-ring career was over, he was great. He was absolutely great.
One more. Master Fuji. How can you guys forget it?
Fuji would be up there for me.
Fuji's up there.
Last one, because if we're mentioning Fuji, we have to mention another great tag team manager, Paul Ellering.
Yes.
JJ, you know, JJ managed the Horsemen, but even with managing the Horsemen, greatest stable of all time, and Ellering managing the Road Warriors, one of the 2 greatest tag teams of all time, 4 greatest tag teams of all time, FTR, the Road Warriors, the Dudleys, Blanchard, and Anderson. There's your 4, in no particular order. I still don't see anybody in terms of a complete package touching Jimmy Hart as the de facto number 3.
I would agree with that.
I'll agree with that.
Well, guys, let's go wrap it up for this week. Programming note, next week is a show that you've all been waiting for. It is the what, Brian?
It is the 3rd annual Iggy Awards presented by the loving folks here at Wrestling with Egos, and we've got a whole bunch of categories for you. We cannot wait to hand out awards for the best and the worst that was in the year of 2021.
And
you will also be getting from the Wrestling with Egos news desk at some point, you'll be in the 2021 year in review from your boy, because the 2020 edition was a rousing success. We got a lot of positive feedback on it. So I will build the IKEA version of the news desk at some point, and I will record that video, and the production team will get it up online for you to peruse as well.
Now, my question is, in terms of the news desk, would that be the Gunter that you're going to be assembling?
No, spoiler alert, it'll be the kitchen table because the brick wall will make an appearance again, and
You said IKEA, so I figured it would either be like the Malm or the Gunter or the Lothar.
It could have been, but I'm not making a trip to Pittsburgh anytime soon just for the sake of buying a table.
You can go to Columbus.
That's true.
Although the one in Pittsburgh is a lot bigger. And also, as far as like full-blown shows, next week will be the last one of the year because our policy here is Christmas and New Year's. We got more important things to do than, even though we love this show, we love our families more. So yeah, no, sorry about that. But we definitely appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, tweet us, tweet the show at Wrestling X Egos. Leave a comment below here on YouTube if you're watching along with us as to what you think, whether we're right, whether we're wrong, whether we missed something. Please do not hesitate to chime in on this conversation. We'd love to hear from you. So that being said, we will see you guys next week for the 3rd annual Iggy Awards. I promise you it's going to be fun. Probably one of us will be dressed up. I can imagine one of us, maybe more. Tune in, you'll find out. So, Isaac said he might go shirtless. I don't know. Just get those gun shows, brother.
It's the gun show. Is it over there?
Oh, good Lord.
That doesn't work for me, brother.
We're cut.
Yeah.
Cut.
Oh no, we're not having that.
Yeah.
If the whistling theme hasn't kicked on yet, you might want to play it now. Hit the play button.
It's there, I promise. So for Isaac, for Brian, for everybody else associated with the show, I'm Patrick. This has been another episode of Wrestling with Egos, number 113. And until next week with the Iggy Awards, just remember that this is why we love wrestling.